Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular council agenda of July 16th. First of all, we have under presentations, we are happy to welcome our MP, Dr. Robert Kitchen. Robert, if you would mind pressing the button and just give us an update of your travels this summer and any other interesting anecdotes that you'd like to bring up.
Your Worship, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for having me here today and the opportunity to talk to you. And just, it's nice to be home in Estevan and back in my own home and in the riding in particular. As we move forward this summer, my plans are, and I've already started this, but going around the riding, I'm meeting with RMs and councils around the riding to talk with them and to hear from them on a number of issues, and we'll touch on those very briefly here today, and ones that are very important for Estevan and surrounding area. And a lot of these issues will have a trickle-down effect for the whole riding and the whole province of Saskatchewan. First off, as you're all aware, Your Worship, coming up on January 1st, the present Liberal government will put forward a carbon tax on the province of Saskatchewan. This will have a huge impact on not only what goes on here locally, but as well throughout the whole province. And at this stage, we are uncertain as to the outcome and where that'll be and what the cost and financial costs will be. As the opposition, we've asked many times for the present government to give us a number, give us a figure so that people can plan, and that is continuously being denied and not given. So that will be something that will come forward. As you're aware, as we get closer, it really is less than 6 months away. And the processes and the steps and the procedures and the protocols, nobody is aware of what needs to be done, and that'll be big challenges for the city. As you're aware, we had the task force that came to Estevan and to Coronach, the Liberal appointed task force dealing with coal. And I was there, and Mr. Mayor, we had the opportunity to meet there, and I thank you very much for allowing me to be there with you, and I appreciate that allowing that to happen. And likewise for Coronach, they did the same thing and allowed me to attend. And we had a lot of questions to be asked. Hopefully, we haven't seen the report from that yet, but hopefully we will see that they listened to what was said here in the community, as well as in Coronach, and hopefully that will be reflected in their report. It appears when they discussed with us, they indicated that every area has a different situation, and I'm hoping that they respect that and report accordingly, especially on issues such as the carbon capture that we have here at BD3. So that task force has come through. I can tell you, Mr. Mayor, that I plan in August, once most people, or hopefully a lot of people, are returning from holidays, that I will be having a town hall, not only here in Estevan Beanfate, but also out in Coronach, to hear from my constituents on solutions that they might propose as we move forward with this. And the intent of that is so that we can take those presentations and again make those presentations back to not only for me, to my colleagues and the official opposition, but also back to this government. You may have heard that last Friday, I was fortunate to have Pierre Poilievre, who is our finance shadow minister in Weyburn, and we had a town hall meeting with him. Unfortunately, it was a very short time frame for me to get him to the province. He was traveling through the province, and I managed to snap him up out of Regina for a short trip down for a short meeting, and then back up to Regina to catch his flight. But I was very appreciative that I have such a relationship with him that he was able to come down and talk to constituents and hear from them. And a number of people from the chamber here in Estevan, as well as the chambers around the riding, attended that meeting in the town hall. So we had an opportunity to hear talk about issues such as the carbon tax, etc. So with that said, one last thing I would like to cover is the issue of the carbon capture and CCS and what we heard from SAS Power. And I think sometimes what's portrayed out in the media is that CCS is dead. And I want to, in my discussions that I've had, and I believe that the narrative is not being portrayed properly. What is being proposed is that CCS on boundaries BD4 and BD5 is not a working model, is not viable. But the issue of Shand or BD6 or even issues of Poplar River are still in negotiations, and I want to make certain that I'm clear on that for those that are listening, so that there isn't despair out there. There's still the SAS Power and the provincial government are still looking at that issue, and I want to reassure everybody here that I truly believe that that is going on, and I still think that is a good thing, and that the narrative should not be continually portrayed that CCS is dead.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Dr. Kitchen. And yes, it does raise a lot of concern about 4 and 5 and the fact now that that's come out that they will be shutting down. They're telling us through attrition, SPC may not lose too many people, but I know at the mine they can't guarantee that. We'll have to see. They didn't answer that question, but we're happy that your government came to the table and helped us to put the clean coal technology in place that we have, and absolutely we feel that's an important part of our future, namely number 6 and Shand, to put in place for clean coal technology. And that's part of the future actually of our community, because as you know, one of the economic drivers definitely is coal power production along with oil and farming, but it is a very main economic driver. So we very much appreciate your encouragement that clean coal is not dead and will continue.
Thank you. I would add that I'm looking forward by the end of the summer, and I have been in discussions with my colleagues in Alberta in dealing that have coal within their ridings, and that between us we will come up with hopefully a policy that we can present to the official opposition and to my colleagues, such that would be moving forward with where we can move forward with CCS. As you're aware, it is huge impact on this riding, and I will fight as hard as I can to make certain that coal and power plants that we have here are continually there and utilized within recognizing the issues that the provincial government has to deal with. They are dealing with the issue of the equivalency and recognition for that. And hopefully we will see that move forward, and I will continue to press my colleagues along those issues.
Absolutely. Well, that sounds encouraging, and thank you so much for that. Perhaps at this time I'll open the floor if Council has any questions of you. Councillor Hoffer.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for being here. It's great to have you here. With the announcement of the closure of Units 4 and 5, and I guess maybe I'm premature in asking and speculating when I don't know enough behind the decision to close it, other than, of course, it can't be outfitted with clean carbon, but it became a priority, or they got onto the chopping block with the election of the Liberal government as the federal government in the last election. And had that not been the case, perhaps we wouldn't have been rushing to close them so soon. It seems to me that the political winds may be changing in a manner that there's a very real chance the Conservative government may form the next federal government. If that is the case, would there have been an opportunity to keep these open longer than 2019 or 21 or 24 than what they're talking to? So I guess I'm asking, in 2 years, if your party forms the next federal government, do you think there's a fighting chance that we can keep these 2 units longer than their now planned closure?
I think to answer that question, the previous Harper government showed their position on carbon capture, and they donated or gave to the carbon capture $240 million. That's our track record. And so I'll stand on that track record. I believe that that is still there. And my goal, as I said during the summer, is to hear more options and more opinions from my constituents, not only here in Estevan, but also in Coronach, on proposals on what we can move forward with. Let's hope that your suggestion comes to fruition, and that we will then be able to talk along on a different avenue on this. But as we move forward with it, we will propose that I will, with my colleagues, make a proposal to my caucus, and hopefully we will see that bode well for these areas.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hoppert. Councillor Frank.
Thanks again for coming. The one point that they made to us when they announced that they'd be closing BD 4 and 5 was that it would be 2021 and 2024, assuming they get the equivalency agreement. From your opinion, they felt confident in here from SBC and from a provincial standpoint. From your opinion, from the federal, are we actually going to get that equivalency agreement, or bad news there?
I'm hoping that the equivalency agreement will come to fruition. As to the negotiations, I'm not privy to those, so I really can't comment as to what stages they are at and where they are with the Liberals on this. I would like to hope that the positive tone that they carried is what will happen, and that the recognition will be made for that aspect of the equivalency. With carbon capture being able to do that and hopefully help sustain 4, 5, et cetera, and extend their lives.
Okay, well, thank you, Councillor Frank. And again, we will be asking, Leanne is coming down from SBC. I don't know who's coming with her tomorrow, but we're going to ask for like an economic task force. We'd be happy if you'd be interested in being on that. We'd like to see people from SBC, all the important stakeholders, people from the mine, people from the Saskatchewan government, people from the federal government, moving forward on how we can get perhaps manufacturing base into Estevan, in case moving forward down the road, some of these things don't work out the way that we would like optimistically to think. We would like to get other things in place in our community to help make up for those potential loss of jobs coming down the pike. So we'd be happy if you'd be interested in doing that. But we'll fill you in as we move forward.
Certainly, I look forward to working with you as we move forward, as time allows.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Kitchen, any other questions? If not, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, next, could I have, under adoption of the agenda, we have the minutes of the council meeting held on June 11th. First of all, can I have a motion, please, to adopt the agenda as presented? Thank you. Councillor Yanish, seconded by Councillor Frank. All in favor? Carried. Next, we have minutes of the council meeting held on June 11th, 2018. Could I have a motion, please, to adopt those minutes as presented? Thank you. Councillor Nib, seconded by Councillor Vroba. Any questions? If not, all in favor? Carried. Next, under original communications, delegations, and petitions, we have MNP with us tonight. Ashley Rushton and Giselle Bourgeois. I hope I pronounced those both correctly. Welcome, ladies. We're happy to have you here tonight. Please step forward to the hot seat, and we'll turn things over to yourself. And we're happy to have our local financial expert, Trudy, with us. And as backup, we have Jeff, so that's great.
All right, thank you, Your Worship. As you mentioned, we're here to present your consolidated audited financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2017. As we move through your financial statements, the first page talks about management's responsibility, various aspects in there, but basically management is responsible for the controls in place to compile the financial statements and report on such. Moving to the next page is our independent auditor's report. The independent auditor's report has various paragraphs in there, once again highlighting what management's responsibility is for the audit, as well as the auditor's responsibility. It also encompasses the qualified audit opinions. So as in the past, the audit is qualified due to the accrual for the landfill closure and post-closure costs, as they are unable to be estimated at this point. And that has been the same for a number of years. So other than that, the report is a clean audit opinion, except for what I mentioned. Going on to the statement of financial position, I'm happy to report that your total financial assets have increased this year to $12.5 million. A large part of that is due to your increase in cash, and that's due to better management overall of your cash flows and monitoring them more closely, setting aside cash flows for catastrophes such as whether a flood may occur or you might get a large snowfall and need those excess funds. So that's a good thing to have there. Your taxes receivable have increased this year, however, to $1.8 million, and that's just a factor of the economy. There's lower turnover in your collections for your taxes. Looking at your liabilities, they have decreased to $35.5 million from $36.2 million. Part of that is due to your long-term debt decreasing substantially. Even though you obtained a $3.5 million loan this year, you were able to decrease that. You can see, even though you did have that $3.5 million loan and your capital lease obligations, you did have a new lease obligation in there with regards to the grader. It was invested in capital assets. So you're investing in your infrastructure, even though you're taking on more debt.
And we're continuing, Giselle, to pay net debt down.
Yeah, and that's another great thing I was going to point out. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay.
Your net debt is at $22.9 million this year versus $25.8 million last year. So that's almost a $3 million decrease, which is very nice to see.
Absolutely. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Council and City Manager and, of course, Trudy, our financial expert, for all of their hard work. Our City Treasurer, how's that, Trudy? I know everybody's afraid of the word expert, right? That means you're further than 40 miles from home, so sorry. Sorry about that. Okay, go ahead, Giselle.
All right. Your non-financial assets, the biggest amount in there is $112 million. And that is your capital assets. You had $7.9 million of additions this year. Large part of that was the fire hall and renovations, as well as the wastewater pond were the two major additions within that. And that, of course, is offset by your annual amortization of $5.6 million. Turning to the statement of operations. You can see in here that your total actual amounts were $33.6 million this year, up from the prior year slightly, which was $33.2 million. The largest part that you can see increasing is the taxes and other unconditional revenue, which was $21.4 million this year. So the mill rate obviously increased this year, which compensated for budget cuts from the province, having to cover those cutbacks. The other major changes occurred within the fees and charges, $10.5 million versus $9.7 in the prior year. There was some increased insurance relating to the 2016 floods that were in that number. Other than that, conditional grants also decreased quite a bit. Last year there was PDAP funding, last year about $1.4 million. That did not occur this year, decreasing that conditional grants. When we look at your total revenue in comparison to budget, the budget number was at $31.5 million, so your actual is actually higher by $2 million. When we look at your expenses, they were $31 million, pretty close to your actual budget and to prior year. There were some variations within the different categories. In particular, protection services, the wages did increase there, as well as the repairs and maintenance needed on the new fire hall. Transportation costs did also increase to $6.4 million versus $5.8 million. A lot of that has to do with snow removal. There was a lot of snow that came in the beginning of 2017, requiring more costs there. Other than that, there was some smaller fluctuations. Utility services you can see increased. That was due to some repairs and maintenance on Dieppe Crescent. Going down further, you can see provincial, federal capital grants and contributions is at $2 million this year versus $1 million. Large part of that increase is the Canada Builds grant this year relating to the utility upgrades. And that resulted in your annual surplus this year of $4.6 million, which is up from the prior year, increasing your overall accumulated surplus to $90.6 million. Is there any questions on any of that?
Thank you, Giselle. Any questions from council? Their eyes are all glazing over, but I think that's a good sign. Councillor Hopper?
Thank you for that, Your Worship. It is a lot to take in, that's for sure. Sorry, my mic wasn't on, but thank you. Just wanted, I had a little maybe a question, I guess. With the cash level that you referred to has gone up substantially, and that's a good thing for managing and having the cash available day to day, not needing a line of credit and all sorts of other wonderful things that we needed many years ago. But is there a level that you get comfortable with? Have we reached it? Is that in your mind
Yep. I think
a suitable level, or is?
Yeah, I think you have reached it. $5 million, almost $5 million in cash. It is sufficient, as if you have anything on an emergency basis, it would definitely cover that. If you want, I would suggest maybe putting some of that aside in some longer-term investments to plan for the longer-term infrastructure.
And thank you for that. And then just briefly on the net debt, which has already been touched on, and so thank you for your indulgence here, but it's something that for the last 5 or so 6 years we've been really tackling aggressively, and I just, you know, so we've reduced it another $3 million. It remains our number one impediment to doing business here, and almost every decision relates to that in one way or another. Have we done enough with it this year? Is that a good number we should strive for, the $2 to $3 million, retiring this regularly with a plan to have it eliminated? Or what can you tell us about your, you know, what do you feel about what we've done to the net debt this year, and where should we continue to go?
I think you've done a great job of reducing it by about $3 million, and I would continue to do so on an annual basis. While you're also increasing your debt to some extent, you're also investing in your infrastructure, which is needed, right? So you're balancing the two key performance indicators, right? So I would suggest doing that on a go-forward basis and keeping on with your investment.
Okay, thank you. And Your Worship, when I say we, as you mentioned, the lion's share of the credit goes to the management team, and we do set some lofty goals and demands at the start of the year when we're budgeting and throughout the year, and just great job to Jeff and Trudy and Judy and the rest of the management team in bringing this in the way they have. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. But at the end of the day, council gives direction, so they have to be on side. So I'm happy to say that council is on side, which is a good thing.
Excellent.
Anything else, Giselle?
Nope, that's about it. So.
Okay, well, thank you both very much for coming, and appreciate that. For the most part, good news. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We'll try to keep our nose to the grindstone and continue to do the right thing. Okay, could we have a motion, please, to accept the MNP financial audit as presented by Ashley and Giselle? Councillor Hoffert, seconded by Councillor Moore. Any further questions? Oh, you have a question? No? Okay, okay. No discussing. Shelley? All in favor? All in favor? Okay. Next, under original communications, delegations, and petitions, we have from Saragella Holdings. We have Pete himself here. Thank you, Pete, for coming. We've got the patio proposal presented by Pete. So if you want to turn the mic on there, Pete, and give us your dissertation, that would be appreciated.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for seeing me today. Yeah, as you said, Pete Saragella from the Tower Cafe. And I'm here today to make a formal request of a patio or deck. And the reason I'm making that request is because of our location. We're hoping to have a temporary summer patio on 4th Street. And that would take up part of a parking lane right in front of the tap house. I don't know if you guys have the submission I made.
Yeah, we've got about 4 pages, Pete. I
Yeah.
think it encompasses everything.
Yep, for sure. So we're looking to do this more as a, I guess, a pilot project per se, for a year or so. We're hoping to create a little bit more atmosphere downtown. The patio or deck that we're asking to use is about a 23-foot by 10-foot deck right in front of the tap house. That would include the parking lane that is right in front of the tap house and would encroach onto the sidewalk about 4 feet or so. Now, 4 feet is an absolute maximum, but that's kind of what we were going with. We were leaving 6 feet to allow for pedestrian traffic to walk through, for wheelchair accessibility, and all that kind of stuff.
And also, Pete, this won't stick out any further than that island where you cross the street, correct?
Not at all, no. And I think it shows that, it may or may not show that on the diagram, but would literally take no more than that and would not stick out any further than any vehicle that would be parking and a mirror sticking out or something like that. So if you refer to a couple of the diagrams I submitted, one being the Capitol Restaurant and Bar in Regina, you'll see that theirs has a roof and kind of a pergola top. We're not submitting that we would do that. We're just offering you descriptions of different patios and concepts that have been done in our province and a few others in the country. So that one you'll see is 2 blocks south of the Casino Regina right downtown. So you'll notice that there is a vehicle parked right behind there, and that's why we submitted that photo. The mirror actually sticks out a little bit further than the patio itself. They also have a fire hydrant there, which is quite similar to ours, so we wouldn't impede on the fire hydrant or anything like that either. So that's why we submitted that example. On the next page, I should have probably numbered the pages, but that's more of the concept that we're looking to go with, something without a pergola top or any wall structures. We're trying to be conscientious with the pedestrian traffic there, and so that pedestrians are visible when crossing the walk there, even though there is a sidewalk and there is a light. Some people choose not to use it at times, so we want to make sure that we're not impeding any visibility. We also like their idea of having a planter there. We're hoping to either having a very sturdy planter, something similar to the cities.
Something round that the vehicles can bounce off?
Well, whether it be round or square, so that it definitely impedes, if anyone was to hit it, they wouldn't be affecting the patio or anyone sitting within the patio sort of thing.
Good.
Round might be a great idea. So we're looking for all that input. But we do want to make sure that you'll notice all of the structures in all the pictures all have tape and night visibility and stuff like that. Now that brings me to my next item, which I was thinking was, as far as hours of operation, we're pretty open to that. We're not looking to open before 11 a.m. So this is a patio that's going to be off of the front of the lounge, the tap house. The tap house is licensed as our lounge to the Tower Restaurant. So we're looking to do it off of the lounge area. We do have a patio on the east side of the building, but that's off of the restaurant end. And it's quite sunny and quite hot during the day. And this side probably won't even require umbrellas or anything because of the shade that is shone upon from the buildings themselves. So it's going to be quite close to that concept right there is what we're hoping to go for.
Good.
In speaking to a contractor, he had visited a couple of decks in Saskatoon and had checked the one in Regina and everything. And we want to make it so that the deck itself is able to come down and be put away and stored for the winter, to allow for street cleaning, to allow for all that kind of stuff, and then come back in the spring and hopefully all the streets are cleaned and we can work around city timelines and everything else so that we're not affecting anything as far as street cleaning, snow removal, or anything like that.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Pete. I think you've got it covered well.
Okay.
We've got Councillor Frank who's got a question. And
Absolutely.
Councillor Groba.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, did you? Okay. And Councillor Hopper.
I didn't actually see this till this morning, and I spent this weekend at the street fair downtown, and happened to run into our active manager as well as Rod March and as well as Richard, and said to everybody, we need to be doing more things like this in our downtown. And I haven't had a chance to speak to any of their councillors, but I really love this idea. Our downtown is far too often thought of as a highway, and we've since diverted the highway, and now we need to do some more culture things like this in downtown. And my biggest concern that this was going to cause is a loss of parking lot, but given the fact that you're one of the few businesses downtown that owns a parking lot, I feel like you've done a pretty fair job of dealing with that. So my personal opinion is I like this idea a lot. I like that you're willing to work with us pretty well to try it out and see how it goes, at least for the first year, and I very much support it. So thanks, Pete.
Yeah, if I can comment on that.
Go ahead.
That parking space, it's literally one parking space. There's a bit of a curve in the pedestrian traffic flow across. It was originally handicap parking and was painted blue
That horrible
at
blue,
that
yeah.
time. And still to this date hasn't really been come off. So that parking spot itself doesn't really get used a lot, probably more so by myself than anybody else. And quite often the taxis actually park there in the wintertime, which is great because people walk out in the winter and everybody wants a cab and they're right there. We're not going to be there in the winter. But in the summertime, there's a lot less call for taxis. People walk a lot more and everything else. This weekend, I want to just mention, we would have loved to have something out on the street. We did end up having something in the patio. And I want to thank everyone from Estevan who did come out and support our pancake breakfast because we raised substantial money for the United Way. But all that being said, it would have been nice to have something a little more down on that block because it seemed like everything else was down on the other block. But yeah, we're excited and hoping, we're just looking to do it as a pilot project, and we'll take any input on a daily, weekly, monthly basis and try to make it work.
Okay, thanks, Pete. Councillor Groba, then Councillor Hopper.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too am in support of it. I think it's a great idea. I like the pictures. I did some research with Hamilton when you mentioned that, so I looked it up. And just, again, with insurance, basically in Hamilton, they request a $5 million commercial liability package with the city being on there as an extra insured. So I know you already have a family connection with insurance. I know you'll have those needs met, but just wanted to put that out there.
We'll definitely look into it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Groba. Councillor Hopper.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks for putting this forward, Pete. I think it's a good idea. I support this in principle. I wanted to mention, Councillor Yanish and I were talking about it prior to the meeting. We were recently at the FCM convention in Halifax, and they have this going on all over the place. One entire street has got little jut-outs like this. And that was part of Halifax's revitalization project. So it is something that seems to be trending across the country in addition to these in Hamilton, as Councillor Groba said. What we saw in Halifax was that the deck was attached more to the building and the walkway around it. And I wondered if that's something you had considered, or if there...
Well, we don't want to impede any pedestrian
For sure.
traffic,
Yeah.
which is probably our most important. And when I spoke with Richard from the city, he had also mentioned that, and we had thought, like, if it was attached to the building itself, we would cause pedestrian flow to jet out towards the street. Mm-hmm. And we were looking not to do that. The other thing we're considering doing is we're considering opening up the face of the front of the building itself and having an open window concept where the garage door would open and having a sit-up window as well. one of our concerns is we really want to make sure that we're attentive to the people that are on the deck. We want to make sure we provide them with proper service, but at the same time, we're keeping an eye on what's going on out there. We don't want to stay open on the patio till 1 o'clock in the morning or midnight or whatever. We probably are going to play with that and probably maybe start out, maybe going 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. And hopefully with that open window, we can keep an eye on it a little better, servers and everyone else, and again, create a little more open atmosphere too in the front of the place.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Halford. That's a very good idea, Pete, because we were in Calgary at an outdoor spot outside of a restaurant. We waited an hour, they never did come.
Yep, no, for sure. I
Yes,
totally
sir.
get it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, any other questions? Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Worship. Maybe I missed it on here, but is it a fully licensed deck?
Yeah, which is one of the reasons, thanks for asking that, which is one of the reasons why we really don't look at, I mean, as much as we'd like to get it done right away, I think it's a little late in the year. By the time we get approved here, get approved with SLGA, and then get it built and move ahead with it, we're not going to have much time, patio season left in the year. So we're looking to maybe do it in the spring of 2019 more than anything else. If we had to, we could push and see if we could get it done this year. But we'd really like to have the opportunity to operate it next year as well.
So it will be available for rent if a party.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We're not looking at having a whole lot of seating out there. There's probably going to be 9 tables of 2. So if it was totally full, it would probably have 18 seats. We're not looking to have like 25, 30 people.
Even though you are in the shade, umbrellas are a good draw.
Yeah, we'll have umbrellas available, and you know, who knows what might come up. But the last few nights, I think earlier on in the year, you need the umbrellas more so. As the season goes on, we get a little more shade out there and stuff. But yeah, we'll definitely look at it. Again, we just don't want to impede on the visibility more than anything else. I hate for a big umbrella to be blocking a pedestrian who's looking across the street and he's looking around an umbrella to get across. I know they have to hit the button, but quite often they don't. Yep.
Good idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good for you guys. Good luck.
So
Okay, thank
again,
you,
it's
Councillor.
just something we've kind of taken ideas from everywhere and tried to put them together, and we're looking for all the input we can get. We don't necessarily think the more eyes, the better. I mean, I was once told 4 people can do much more together than just one individual themselves. So all the input we can get, we look forward to.
Okay, appreciate that. Councillor Yanish?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the patio proposal with consultation through the city.
Okay. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Frank? Any further dialogue? If not, all in favor? Carried. There you go, Pete. Good luck.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Just
Appreciate
one
your
last
time.
thing, Pete. You're going to invite us all for the opening night, though. That's the big thing. right?
Done deal. Done deal. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, under original communications, delegations, and petitions, we have the Estevan Girls Softball Association asking for a special permit. Now, I wouldn't say that this is a girl stepping up to the mic, but go ahead, buddy.
Your Worship, City Management, Estevan City Council, thank you for taking time tonight to discuss this with me.
No problem.
As everyone knows, I'm John from Mr. Mike's here in town. We are planning, can everyone, okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
We're planning to have this event on an annual basis for the Estevan Softball Association. It's a charity event for us to give back to the Softball Association to help them improve their entire structure, diamonds, anything that they may want to expand with over the years. Who knows what projects will come up 5 years from now that they may want to bid on or whatnot. We want to be involved because, well, it's the community, and that's our motto for Mr. Mike's. We're all about community. We've been involved in many events, as everyone knows. I'm basically here to answer any questions that may. I believe everyone does have this in front of them already.
Yes, they do, John. Yep.
I'm here to answer any of the questions because we're requesting the following: the city event permit for the weekend, so we can have our entertainments, have our beer gardens. I've worked hard and diligent to secure a lot of ahead of time, knowing, because I've done a lot of events in my lifetime, knowing almost what questions you may have for me. Like an example, if we put the beer gardens in the outfield, well, we're putting them in the 2 last diamonds that only have 3-foot fences. Well, guess what? I'm going to need 6-foot fences, right? So of course I thought ahead of that and secured 6-foot fencing for the entire diamond, right? The stage for the events, the live music nights for the Friday and Saturday night, I've went ahead and made sure that if approved, I have that ready to go. I've secured talent for the events for Friday and Saturday night based on the event permit. Of course, if this doesn't happen, then we don't have the talent, of course, right? But Chris Henderson, local boy, will do the Saturday night. I'm sure everyone's quite familiar with him. And of course, with a lot of local companies, with Steam Est securing the porta potties, with GFL supporting, providing the recycling and garbage removal. From any of these, of course, anything else with the softball, with the school district, I believe we already have the parking permits for any volunteers for the softball association and for Mr. Mike's, of course, that are going to be working this event in the beer gardens. I have Secure Force out of Regina to manage and operate the beer gardens security, anything that's needed for that event. We will take, I believe, on here, the 100 blocks of, there's 2 blocks on Wellick and 2 blocks on, I'm so sorry, thank you, on there, who, of course, live right next to that park. And we'll make sure that we let them all know that this is going to be happening, if approved, that there's no surprises. What's going on here, right? We have secured for some of the out-of-town teams, $90 room rate through Jeff Pearson at the Days Inn, through the Suburban with Sid Mashash, the general manager there. We have a $90 room rate for the out-of-town teams that are coming. The Kinsman will provide a shuttle service from the park to these hotels and to Mr. Mike's parking lot. So that way anybody who wants to drive can park at Mr. Mike's Walmart/parking lot, get a shuttle pickup there to the tournament. I'm not interested in disturbing a lot of the public. I want them to have as much of, if they want to park on the street because that's where they live, I want them to be allowed to do that. I don't want them to be too, I'm not here to interfere with anyone's normal lifestyle, right? I'm here to enjoy this event, to support this community and do the best we can, right, with a little impact.
No, that's great. Thank you so much, John, for that. And to provide upon it, looks like you have all the bases covered. Councillor Hoffer.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I wonder what kind of tournament is going on here that weekend?
So it's a slow pitch classic, so it's slow pitch, co-ed. Like modified rules because they are girls softball diamonds. So it'll be modified rules, softball rules. Excuse me, I'm not an expert in softball tournaments. I'll leave that to Rhonda and the Softball Association to run the schedule and the rulings of the tournaments. But we've discussed loosely of, modified home run rules and et cetera of that. There will be 4 games guaranteed for all teams. Preliminary, we do have teams that want to play all the way from North Battleford and Lloydminster already, Saskatoon. They want to come in. Right, so that's why we secured the room rates, because we want to make Estevan as busy as we can that weekend, right? From everywhere, from downtown from the tap house to OJ's to Mr. Mike's, we're all in, right? I mean, this is the community, and like when I say I speak in the community, I'm thinking everyone who knows me understands how much I actually love this community, right? There isn't a question about that at all. I love all businesses to succeed, and I want us to be really good.
Okay, well, thank you, John. Councillor Hoffert, any other further questions? Okay, thank you. Councillor Vrova?
I'd just like to make a motion that we allow this to go through and do the permit. I think it's a good idea.
Do the necessary permitting. Okay, have we got a seconder? Okay, Councillor Nibbs, any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. There you go, John. You should be a politician. You sold it.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Okay, next under original good night. Next under original communications, delegations, and petitions, we have from Jolynn Lindenbach, request for special permit for the provincial ball tournament, August 10th to 12th. Councillor Hoffer.
Acceptance and approval, Your Worship.
Okay, have we got a seconder? Okay, Councillor Nibbs, any further questions? All in favor? Carried, thank you. I think that would make John feel bad. He went on a 10-minute dissertation. That was handled in 10 seconds. No, I guess not. I guess not. Okay, next, under original communications, delegations, and petitions, we have from the Rotary Club of Estevan, special permit for the Eels Swimming, Provincials, July 28th. What's the wish of council on this? Basically, from Ryan Seaver, we've got Rotary Club will be looking after the bar, including getting the license, supplying the alcohol, and serving. Now, city manager, I imagine, are they looking after security, or is it big enough not to worry, or what's?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would think that it wouldn't be large enough they need security, but we'll follow up on that. And just to mention, it is in the Power Dodge Ice Center. That's why it's coming for approval, because it's in, SNGA needs approval for being in a city facility.
Right. So I imagine it's probably mostly parents of the Eels that shouldn't get too far out of hand. Councillor Nibbs?
Acceptance and approval.
Okay, thank you. Have we got a seconder? Okay. Councillor Yanish, any further questions? If not, all in favor? Carried. Okay, next, under written reports of committees, we have none this evening. Executive reports, we have from Land Development, discretionary use application, 1009 6th Street. Richard, would you like to step up to the plate, please?
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Yes, what we have is a development permit application. Just so everyone is aware, the applicant is in attendance here today as well. It's for Living Skies South Fitness and Wellness Center. And it's on the property everyone would probably know if you landmark it. You know where our recycle bins are? On 6th Street there by the intersection of Service. This is the building immediately to the east of it. And so normally this would be a fairly standard approval, but one of the things that I'm looking for, if I can get it here today, is some direction from council on one of the provisions of our zoning bylaw, which is a little bit thorny here for me to deal with. And it's a requirement that, with the exception of a few types of dwellings, when you issue a development permit on a property for commercial, industrial use or anything like that, the parking lot has to be hard surfaced. This is a situation where it is a industrial zone lot for commercial use accessing onto a gravel road, 6th Street. Just so you know, I previously had a commercial use in a commercial zone out near the Ford dealership, which ran into the same situation, although that was a permitted use. I had no choice. I had to put in the thing. And I have one, possibly two more permits for council consideration at the next council meeting on the same issue. And where I'm a little torn is, if everything was done properly, when those buildings went in originally, how many years ago, they were fully compliant, probably, with the gravel driveway. And the requirement to hard surface them, either with asphalt or concrete, is a big ticket item. And I don't, so on the one side, I'd like to see these be paved, and so I'm recommending that they be paved. But on the other hand, I don't want to be in this kind of economic climate that we were in, driving away businesses. And so I guess I'm looking for some wisdom from council as to how to approach this on this permit and going forward. So that's the one issue that would be a little bit different from your standard approval. The other one is also related to parking. There's not even close to enough available on-site parking at this building. They need to get additional parking from an adjacent or nearby property. And in that regard, I had a discussion with City Manager Jeff Ward about this. We have that big lot with the recycle station there, the bins for plastic and cardboard and what have you. that is right immediately adjacent. One of the possible solutions here for the parking issue on this business may be to lease a portion of that lot that would be immediately adjacent to the property. And then the developer has already said that they'd be more than willing to finish the surfacing on that portion of the property, and then they have parking right beside their building without adversely impacting on the recycle area. I think everybody would agree that that recycling yard is fairly large. So,
Well, it sounds, Richard, that you may have already have the solutions for us.
well, that's for the number of stalls, but, and I think that might work, subject to terms and conditions being approved and agreed upon by everybody.
And I think the other as well with the gravel situation, and I agree with you, I don't think we want to turn a business away that may be the difference between them having the business and not. That bylaw came in when, in 15?
To 2010.
So maybe we could even look at anything after, that's new after 2010 may have to have pavement, or even after like a new build, and then the older ones can be grandfathered, which I guess to the most point they already have been, haven't they? Because we haven't made them turn that gravel to pavement.
That's one possible solution, is a grandfathering, and then I guess within the grandfathering, you can also get a little bit more defined, and I was thinking, if it's zone commercial, like retail commercial, like the highway commercial, that kind of stuff, that could be potentially treated differently than if it's industrial zone. If it's industrial zone and it's gravel, you knew that when you tried to set up your business by renting a bay in one of these old buildings.
Yeah, you'd kind of expect that.
And I guess what I'm looking for and to work with council is to find something that makes sense, that won't drive business away, but also meets our long-term goals and objectives in a consistent approach, so that I have the ability when I'm talking to developers to say, this is why you have to hard surface yours, and to the other one, this is why you're being grandfathered.
And you could provide that rationale.
I could.
Absolutely. Councillor Hopper?
I thought, Your Worship, and to Richard for your comments, is would it not make sense that where the business fronts a gravel road, you should not have to hard surface, and where it does, you do? Would that be a simple solution?
That might work. What do you think, Richard?
That is one way of, it would be very easy to interpret and understand and to put on. Just so you know, I have a permit coming in next council meeting. It's for a place of worship, and it's also an industrial area with a large gravel parking lot, and it fronts onto a paved road.
Okay. Well, I think in some of these cases, Councillor Hoffert, we'll have to look at each case under its own merits, but as much as we would like to have a solution that would work for everything, I don't know if we're going to get there, but Councillor Frank?
I agree with this one in particular, knowing the location of it. I think it'd be absurd for us to force them to pave it when the road is not paved. That seems crazy, but I'm wondering if we can't, do we not have the ability for other locations? I know you mentioned, I'm assuming you're talking about the toy store next to Senchuk Ford there, that one's not paved. Is there the ability for us to put in like a 10-year period, saying, okay, we'll grandfather you for now, but within the next 10 years, we expect that it be paved? Because I agree with you, I don't know that I would want to hinder a business from ever coming in, but I also like the idea of trying to get our city away from having so many gravel parking lots. So
Yeah, I think as much as we try to get everything paved, in some cases, it's simply not going to be financially possible. Councillor Groba?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm assuming that this building, that this business going into is going to actually be leasing the building. They're not actually owning the building. So, and I think that it's a great way to start a new business like this. We had one in Estevan before. The parking lot that business had probably had 3 parking spots if you're lucky, and I think the cab company took up 2 of them. It was very hard to park at. I think this new spot is going to add ample parking. I think that we should just go ahead and try and support them in any way we can to get the new business in Estevan.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Richard, did you have anything else to add?
I guess what I can do is, at this point, is go with a situation where if it's industrial at least, as a zoning, and it's an existing building, is grandfathered, and anything other than that, like, and you mentioned toy stores and more, it's up to them to put their best foot forward to see if they earn or warrant a relaxation. And then we can deal with this whole thing comprehensively as part of the new zoning bylaw over the winter months.
Exactly. I like your suggestion, and thanks, Council, for your feedback. Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Your Worship. Richard, so the land that you're suggesting they use being the city's property, are there going to be fees for parking on there like the BID has, or is this free of charge to park on there? And how many parking stalls? I see you have a number here, but what are you going to do to control more than that parking on there if it did get to be a very successful business, and before we know it, we've got 30 cars on there interfering with the pickup of the recycled goods?
Well, I guess in the one case, if the city were to enter into an agreement with the developer for parking there, it would be subject to terms and conditions, one of which I would expect would be a monetary rental. There'd also be care and maintenance of the parking area, like snow removal, that kind of stuff. That would have to be terms that would be agreed to. In terms of being overloaded with the parking, I guess the applicant might be able to speak to that. What he's told me was that his classes that he would be holding would be a maximum normally of about 15 students. So 15 students and 1 or 2 staff, that would probably be about the maximum if everybody came in their own car, which would fit our parking bylaw. So I'm not too concerned about them requiring extra space, although if they did, we might be able to accommodate that as well. That's a large lot. There's also other parking areas. There's businesses nearby this site that have private parking lots which are operating during regular business hours. This business is planning to operate primarily in evenings, so there's an option for this developer as well to acquire parking from existing parking lots in the private sector within a block or 2 distance.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Moore. Do we have a motion then to move forward, members of council? Councillor Moore, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Frank. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, and good luck. Okay. Next, under executive reports, we have land development, discretionary use, application of Unit 4, 421 Kensington, and I believe the owner, Mr. John Thomas, is with us this evening. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Your Worship, and
welcome to City of Estevan Council, and please go ahead. You have the mic.
Sure. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the time and allowing me to be here. So thank you, Your Worship, and Council and City Management. As introduced, my name is John Thomas. My brother and I formed Prairie Sky Cannabis to apply for the recreational cannabis permits through the SLGA lottery. My background, I'm a pharmacist. My brother's an engineer.
We won't hold that against him.
I hear you. So really, I think we're very excited to take on this new venture, very excited to be in Estevan, and very conscious of the fact that this is still an industry that has some concerns with it. And, part of what we're hoping to establish going forward is to really assure that we're meeting the bylaws, regulations of all levels of government. As a healthcare professional, I see the need for that to be, obviously it's critical. Having said that, we are excited to be part of an industry that's, although not new, newly legalized and very fast growing, and it is an exciting industry, and we're very excited to be part of Estevan and part of the business community in the city.
Okay, well, thank you, John. Have we got any questions from members of council to John? Councillor Vroba?
I actually don't have any questions. I'm happy to see where you're going to be located. I think it's perfect in between Taco Time and Subway there. So I actually would like to make a recommendation.
You can tell
that
we're a
we-
small community.
As soon as I seen it, I thought I'd pick there too. So anyways, I'd just like to make a recommendation that we allow them to proceed with.
So, Councillor Vroba, is this because when you get to Munchies, you have a place to eat? Real
I
quick?
have actually never tried, but
Okay, just checking, just checking. That was a good answer.
I've read about it.
Okay, no, I got you.
No,
Well,
I think it's a good location, and
Okay.
I actually am happy with it. So
Okay, thank you for the motion. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Frank?
I just had a question, actually, well, I'll second the motion, yeah.
Okay, and go ahead then with your question.
I just wanted to refer back to our bylaw, and it does look like you're complying with that, but when we created our bylaw, we kind of distinctly said we didn't want a lot of marijuana paraphernalia or advertising or anything like that, correct? And that's it, and I just want to make sure we're still following to that, is that?
Yeah, I think, not excessive, but yeah.
Yeah, but it does look like you're planning to.
No,
Most of
I'd say two things on that. One, SLGA, they've outlined regulations. Signage obviously is the municipality, but their regulations are someone from the outside of the business. They're not allowed to see into the business. So that glass will be frosted. As far as signage, it's
Yeah.
what kind of we're looking at for the business. Is that on the?
I guess what I'm just wondering, so advertising on that frosted window, are you planning to put two posters or anything like that? Or
No, I
neon
don't.
lights or anything?
No, I don't think so, and that kind of goes back to the type of business we're trying to run. We, as the designs come out for it, we're thinking of a pretty clean image. We're not putting up 99-cent sale.
Yeah, more professional, less tacky, exactly.
Yeah, that's really, we're very fortunate with the lottery. We've got 4 locations, and that's really what we're trying to establish is, we don't want to, we've reached out to the police, to Paul, and, really hoping to really bring a sense of legitimacy to this business, and not, whether that be with hours, minors, advertising, promotion. We're conscious that you could run this business in a couple ways, and we don't want to run it like this way. We want to.
You're going to take the high road, absolutely.
That's certainly the intent, yes.
And that's really what I wanted to affirm, is just that we're going to get that clean look that will help, not against you, but that will help move that stigma away and help people to respect your business and not think of it as a scummy thing or anything like that.
That's the intent, and that's kind of I didn't mean to cut you off, I apologize. But that was kind of the intent of that location as well. We appreciate that Estevan kind of took the route of put it in the light, and to me that makes the most sense as well, and that's kind of the idea of why that location was chosen also.
Exactly. Okay, well, if there's no more questions, all in favor? Carried. There you go, John. She's been a successful evening tonight.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Next, under executive reports, we have Program Manager, ICE Allocation Policy. And you gentlemen, you're not forced to stay. I understand that it's like watching paint dry, but whatever you want, you're more than welcome to stay if you wish.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and again, welcome to Estevan. We look forward to seeing you in our community.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Yeah. City Manager, did you want to take that over?
Thank you, Your Worship. So this was submitted by Erin Wilson, our Programs Manager. She deals with the ICE scheduling and some of the ICE allocation blocks. This is really just an updating of the current policy that we have in place. So highlighting the few changes there in regards to hours of operations, stat holidays, when schedules are to be submitted by, hoping to change the cancellation rate. It's very tough, especially with the 2 rinks for tight ice time, if people are canceling last minute, because there's, obviously it's a very valuable commodity. So a change in that, and then also tournaments and special events. We have seen in the last couple of years some events that come in that they feel like they fly by the seat of their pants, but I think that's part of our initial touch base with them as well. So we've created a tournament sheet and special event sheet that'll dictate exactly, what power supply needs to be there, what tables you need, where you need them, and a lot of that stuff. So she's just putting that in the policy, and I think these are all good things moving forward, just to solidify that those facilities run as efficient as possible.
Okay, thank you, City Manager. We met several times with the major user groups, and they were very professional, and we appreciate that. They gave us a lot of good input. So, yeah, I'd like to especially thank Aaron and Jeff for all of the work that they've done on this file. So what's the wish of council? Have we got a motion to move forward? Thank you, Councillor Broba.
No, I had a question,
Oh.
Councillor Hopper's first.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Hopper.
No, I was going to move for acceptance and approval.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Second that, and then
I'll
ask
second
a
it. I just have a
question.
question about the stat holiday. I just didn't understand. I know the 12 to 5 thing, but do we have it in our union contract or anywhere that the workers or employees are only 12 to 5 on those stat holidays, and that's why we want to maintain those hours?
Thank you, Councilor. From my understanding, anytime we're operating outside those hours, we are paying double time for our union. It's in our union agreement.
Versus time and a half between 12
Yes,
to 5.
exactly.
Okay.
So just that if people want an event outside those hours, that they're just going to have to pay a premium to cover our additional staff costs.
Nope, that's good. I just wondered why we had an extra premium. The other question I had is about the cancellation policy. When it's 48 hours, I know last year there were certain times where, especially with the Civic, that we had closed at the time, we'd go on a Saturday afternoon and this affinity place would be empty, and that would be to the fact of teams canceling, something happening. Are we going to work closer with, or can we ask minor hockey to know, even if it's inside the 48 hours, what I've been told is like cities like Weyburn and some other cities have a last minute kind of hotline they can call. So let's say I walk in there and I notice the ice is empty, I can phone and I can say, hey, can I have the ice from 12 to 2 today? Do we have that set up?
Thank you, Councilor Baroba. There's nothing formally set up, but I know as we were making these ice allocation spots that you guys would have been privy to through emails, that there was kind of a semi-commitment from the groups that if they've booked it, that they are going to pay for that time. We did bring up a few years ago about cancellation hours being pretty significant, and then we lose that revenue. And it did sound like that we were going to try to make it work that if a group has it booked, that they will pay for that. And then I guess that would be their situation if they wanted to get it out to another group. So, but we will be working closely with the user
Yeah,
groups.
because sometimes, like I know, so a user group might be paying for it from 12 to 4, but the problem is when the general public comes in and sees it empty, then we get the text saying, hey, I thought we had an ice issue, how come we got no ice here? And I know sometimes that happens closer to the end of the year, and just that suggestion I've heard is that there's a line people can call in other cities to say, hey, there's no ice, can I have it? And so if just someone wanted extra practice, I wonder if that's something we could set up with our, whether it be at the Leisure Services desk or something.
Councillor Broba, that's something that we'll look at, and that's a good idea.
Okay, we just.
And I know Chad Farr from Minor Hockey was very helpful. We did talk about that, and he said they'll take a closer look at that and think twice about, before canceling. Absolutely. And the Figure Skating Club was very helpful as well, so we thank them as well. So all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, from the tax assessor, August tax penalties. Now, Trina's not here. Jeff, did you want to take that one?
Thank you, Your Worship. So as everyone knows, we had SAMA here. They indicated it was their fault for the delay in us getting our assessments, which extends our roll period. As Trina mentioned, she does like to keep that roll open for 30 days, so that took us into July. Usually penalties will be applied at the end of July, but because the assessments are out late, she's given recommendations on what we could potentially do to change that penalty. So we talked about changing the deadline date, but you don't want to do that because then if somebody comes in this year, they'll come in next year and say, oh, well, the deadline wasn't until August 31st. You want to keep the deadline there, but adjust the penalty rates. So she's got two options there, changing it to September 1st with the penalty for August, or doing it to the middle of the month, but it did look like she was recommending going to September.
Yeah, thank you, City Manager, but at the end of the day, option one is what she would like, and that's to waive the August penalty of 0.5%, 0.5%, and the penalties to start September 1st at 1%. Councillor Groba, then Councillor Yanish.
Thank you, Your Worship. I personally think September 1st at the 1% would be the good way to go, but I'd like to hear what other councillors think or feel. The other thing is, people who went to pay their taxes may have noticed you can now pay with a credit card. And I personally thought this was a wonderful idea because I love air miles, till I went to pay. And they
you're
were
paying
going to
that
jack me
2%.
with a 3.5% tax, so
Oh,
I quickly
3.5.
went back to my online banking and gave up my air miles. So I just want people to really truly understand that they are going to be paying a premium by using a credit card, so just...
Absolutely, that's a good point, and some actually are willing to do that to get the points. It's not something I would do, Councillor Vroba, but
If my husband was
some
paying
are
the
doing
credit
it.
card bill, I would have done it for the air miles, but...
But again, you can't
I didn't.
expect the city to absorb
No,
that.
no, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's, the credit card company does charge us to have to use that.
Exactly.
So I understood why, but for that fleeting moment, I was excited.
Right on. Okay, thank you. Councillor Yadish.
I'd like to make a motion to start the penalty September 1st at 1%.
Okay, thank you. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Hoffert? Questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, from Fire Services, we have the monthly report for April and May. They're fairly busy. Could we have a motion to accept those as presented? Thank you, Councillor Nibs, seconded by Councillor Yanish. Any further questions? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, from our building inspector, we have the building permit report for June 2018. Do we have a motion, please, to accept that? Councillor Hoffert, thank you. Second it. Councillor Moore, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, from the water treatment plant manager, we have the water quality report for June. Could we have a motion to accept that as presented? Councillor Yanish, seconded by Councillor Broba, thank you. Now, everything is great except our trihalomethanes, which we've been over for some time now, and that's the reason why we're building the new water line to Rafferty. So come spring, we'll have that issue taken care of as well. Okay, did I ask for that motion, City Clerk? I did? Okay, good, thank you. Introduction of bylaws. First of all, we have bylaw 2018-2003, Establishment of the Development Appeals Board. Now, tonight we'll give this first reading. We did have a Development Appeals Board, but it kind of fell into abeyance, and we never really, I shouldn't say, well, I don't think we really needed it, City Clerk, until now. Again, we are looking at needing it. So we're going to give that first reading this evening with the intention of letting our public take a look at it, and then we'll give it second and third at the next meeting. So could we have a motion, please, for bylaw 2018-2003, Establishment of the Development Appeals Board? Councillor Yanish, seconded by Councillor Nibs. Any further questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, we'll move to the borrowing bylaw. Now, tonight we'll give this first, second, and third reading. So this is a bylaw of the City of Estevan to provide for borrowing the sum of $2 million for the purpose of water main replacement and resurfacing of King Street from Pine Avenue to Kensington Avenue, sidewalk renewal, and demolishing the Civic Auditorium. City Manager, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, this continues kind of the path that we've kind of set out in the last few years. Our principal debt repayments are around $4 million, as was noted in our financial statements. But obviously being aware that we need to continue with some major rehabilitation, such as King Street and sidewalks, which are we've done a lot of work on already this year. So the recommendation from myself is to continue to borrow $2 million and get these rehabilitations done, while still knowing that we will have a net debt reduction of our loan payments of $2 million each year if we continue this route. There is a recommendation of a 15-year loan, and that's because we're trying to match the borrowing term with the length of the asset. So we expect sidewalks and King Street to last at least 15 years. That's the longest fixed rate term that they will give us. We're still getting very good rates, as you can see in there, 4.18% fixed for 15 years. So that's a recommendation to council. And yeah, I think that's all.
Okay, thank you, City Manager. Just before we move to council, Trudy, our treasurer, did you have anything to add?
Just one thing, the reason we're asking for you to do The reason we're asking to do all 3 readings tonight is because the big 6 have all raised their rates. And so they've given us till July 20th if I phone them tomorrow and lock this rate in. Other than that, we would have to, if we waited too long, the rate probably wouldn't be going up.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that. Obviously, we want to lower rates, so thank you for that. Councillor Hopper?
Thank you, Your Worship. To the city treasurer and manager, would you give any consideration to maybe not doing the full 2 million in light of what what was just presented to us in the financial statement, where we have substantial cash on hand, and to the point where they might have even been suggesting investing some of it, rather than that perhaps take less of a loan? Does that make any sense in your way of thinking, or or the way you're planning for this? And then my next question is the length of it, being 15 years, and I would assume the sidewalks, I'm hoping they would last. I mean, I know you probably amortize them or whatever you do over 15 years, but I'm expecting them to last an awful lot longer than 15 years. But, it is our goal to have our accumulated debt and net debt retired long before 15 years, if things go on the same track, and I guess that'll be at the discretion of future councils and their philosophies. But so I guess the question is, would you consider moving that? What would be the implications of moving the 15 years to 10, and would we not be wise to knock at least the Civic Auditorium one off of this and take less of a loan?
City Manager?
Thank you, Councilor Hofford. I don't have any issues with reducing the amortization term. If we want to go down to 10 years because we feel that's where we want to be paid off, I'm fine with that. The reason we initially made them as long-term is because we were very cash tight. So we wanted our payments kind of to equal where we are. Obviously, with the cash balance the way it is, we can probably afford to budget for that higher principal debt payment. So I'm fine with that. I guess it's up to council. Obviously, there was some cash there at the end of the year. If you'd like to use that as use up some of that cash reserve instead of borrowing, we definitely can look at that. The thing is, we can always reassess that at the end of this year and see where that's at again. So I would be fine if you'd like to make that amendment.
True enough, and I would be interested in what the rest of council thinks. I mean, this is simply my thoughts, and I'll accept the will of the majority, of course. But I think with the good work that's been done, that maybe we're in a position where we can stray from this a little bit. That's just my thoughts, and obviously time is of the essence. We want to pass this tonight, apparently, so anyway, I would be interested to see what council thinks.
Okay, what's the wish of council? Councillor Grove?
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just wondering the same thing too, if we just did the 1.7, and then at the end of the year, if we had the extra cash, you can still make lump sum payments on these? No? That was my other question, is you couldn't then.
We checked with that today.
So then I think it would be more wise then to take the cash off the top right now.
City Manager?
Your Worship, just to the city clerk, if we can we amend this, or does it have to be brought back?
No, you can amend it.
So we could amend it even to a 10-year amortization, get what the rate is, and this would still be the approval for that?
Just take the 15
Because the rate will be
10
different,
and leave
right?
the rest alone.
It won't be more though.
No, the rate would be less.
I would say go down to the 10-year, like Councillor Hoffert said, and then take your cash right now, the 300,000, like Councillor Hoffert said, go to the 1.7 million loan and still do it over 10 years.
Over 10?
I just wanted to make sure we could amend it and still pass it tonight to get those lower. Okay.
Because it'll be less than what they see right now, and if they're happy with what they see right now, then
If it's more, we couldn't, less we can.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, any other councillors want to weigh in? I guess we're okay. Councillor Hoffert, do you want to make that amendment?
Yeah, I would move that amendment, and just to be clear, I'm not being critical of this. I'm actually very excited with the financial direction and the leadership that Jeff and Trudy have provided here. So just to be crystal clear on that, so I would be happy to move that amendment to take it to 1.7 by removing the demo and 10-year term.
Okay, and that's seconded by Councillor Yanish. Okay, any further questions? All in favor? Okay, done.
we have to do all 5 of these.
All 5, yes. So now that we've got the amendment, now motion, I guess, for second, that was an amendment. Now we'll need, I guess, first reading on the amended motion. So motion for first reading, Councillor Vrova, seconded by Councillor Yanish. All in favor? Thank you. Passed. Motion for second reading on bylaw,
Okay, second.
yeah, we go to second now.
Okay.
Motion for second reading on bylaw 2018-2004 on the amended bylaw. Have we got a motion? Councillor Vroba, seconded by Councillor Yanish. Any questions? This is where I ask if you have any questions. Forever hold your peace if you don't. Okay, all in favor? Okay, motion that referral of bylaw 2018-2004 to council and committee for study be waived. Have we got that motion? Councillor Hoffer, seconded by Councillor Moore. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now, motion that bylaw 2018-2004 to be given 3 readings at this meeting. Councillor Hoffer, seconded by Councillor Nibbs. All in favor? Carried. And last but not least, the motion that bylaw 2018-2004 be taken as been given third and final reading, approved, adopted for use by the City of Estevan. Who wants to make that? Councillor Yanish, seconded by Councillor Frank. All in favor? Carried. Thank you for your indulgence. Next, public hearings and reports. We have none. Giving notice? None. Motions from committee? None. Consideration of bylaws? Now, this is the bylaw 2018-1999, bylaw to amend building demolition permits. We had first reading out. City Clerk, did we have any concerns?
No.
No concerns. So tonight we'll be looking at passing bylaw 2018-1999, bylaw to amend building demolition permits, second and third reading. So, have we got a motion for second reading? Councillor Nibbs, seconded by Councillor Moore. Any questions? Seeing no questions, all in favor? Carried. Now, I'll ask for passing of bylaw 2018-1999, bylaw to amend building demolition permits, third reading. Have we got a motion for third reading at this meeting? Councillor Vroba, seconded by Councillor Nibbs. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, inquiries. Councillor Hoffert.
I think I've probably talked enough, Your Worship.
You have talked a lot, but anyway, Councillor Vroba, what have you got?
I have never heard that before. No one's ever told me I talk a lot, so I'm...
You do. You do. You do. Trust me, you do. But go ahead.
They've actually been telling me that since I was born. So, Stars Valley Theatre, I just wanted to let everyone know, right now they got the play Homecoming, and I actually was there last Tuesday selling 50/50s. I'll be there again tomorrow night. And it's a really good play. It's about a couple that are on the farm and they're retiring and they're giving the farm back to their kids, or giving the farm to one of their kids. And it's just very interesting. It's a comedy. July 21st is when it ends. And then also on July 26th, the Petersons and the Doe family will be there. The Petersons are actually, I believe it's banjos, and it sounds very interesting. And then the Doe family, everyone knows that they're awesome. So if you would like to come and support the theater, please come down before July 21st and see the play Homecoming.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vroba. I had the privilege of being involved in that play on opening night, and it was fantastic. We laughed all the way through it, so I strongly encourage. I know sometimes we get not so good reviews, but this Homecoming was excellent. And as we know, the Does and the Petersons are local talent, and they're very, very good. So hopefully we can get a good turnout for that as well.
Yes, and I heard they were very impressed with your acting skills and the fact that the character you played actually is named Roy. So.
Yes, well, they did chase me out of the hall with a small pitchfork, but I think overall it went pretty good. Thank you. Councillor Yanish?
Nothing, Your Worship, but maybe they weren't joking. They were maybe trying to get rid of you.
No, it was fun. It was fun. Councillor Craig?
I just had one that I thought of during the meeting, so the city manager can hate me for this later, but we get a building summary report from the building. Now that we have actual licensing for business, is it possible, just after tonight, I've heard a few new businesses that have opened up or moved, is it possible to get a report every once in a while on business licenses that have been taken out by the city?
Yeah, we can do that.
Something that we can look into?
Make
Other
that
than that,
happen.
that's it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nibbs?
Nothing, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just like to pay some respect to the citizens that go above and beyond when it comes to looking after weed control. We know that every time we get a rain, the weeds just grow overnight, and the city is busy doing what they can. But we have citizens that will take the time to cut the alleys and will cut the fronts of their lawn onto the boulevard, and it's much appreciated. And I hope that, having said that, the folks that are living nearby pick up on the same thing and just help out a bit. I realize we all pay taxes, but sometimes personal pride kind of kicks in, and everybody feels good about it. So for those that are looking after their own and some of ours, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. We always appreciate the citizens that take pride in their properties and keep them clean, absolutely. And I know we've been inundated with concerns about the old, not the hospital, but the Padiachi Clinic. And you can rest assured that's in the process of being dealt with very quickly. And the ongoing Essex issue as well. We'll be talking, or we've dealt with that, but I don't know, City Manager, did you have a chance to talk to Essex about planting broom or grass and making a crop out of it and keep the weeds down, or?
Yeah, Your Worship, I just want to mention, not specifically on Essex, but that a lot of people think that once something's identified, that it can be rectified right away. In our bylaws, there is a notification period, and the homeowner or property owner has the right to rectify within a certain days, because once the city does it, there's a bill that's put on and can be put onto their taxes. So I know a lot of times people will say, well, I phoned the city, they didn't do anything. I think we have to give between 14 and 30 days, depending on the issue. So it is a longer. I know we've talked about it at administration level, bringing in that bylaw to review those timelines to make sure that we can go in there and fix these issues, because I know it is very frustrating for citizens that feel they phoned in multiple times on the same issue when it in fact is actually in the bylaw's hands.
Absolutely, thank you. Yes, we are looking at changing the bylaw, especially for repeat offenders. And we don't want to maybe name them, but I think they've already been named, some of them, so then we could go in and quickly take care of them and put it on their taxes, because it gets ridiculous. And we totally understand the people that take and give care and attention to their property and then see neighbors like that not take care of their stuff, so. Okay, City Manager, did you have anything else?
Yeah, Your Worship.
Okay, City Treasurer, did you have anything this evening? Anything else, City Clerk?
Nothing, Your Worship.
Okay, could we have a motion, please, to go into committee? Okay, thank you. Councillor Nibbs, seconded by, or should I say Mr. Councillor Frank or Councillor? Okay, all in favor? Carried.
You're good all night.
I gotta toss that at you once in a while.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay, we stand adjourned.